Welcome back to the Big Ranch Show. Thank you for joining me. First off, I wasn't going to do this update until tomorrow when I could get more information, but I wanted to respond to some of the comments and I'm going to give you a little bit of an update. First off, for those people that had concerns about the lack of sourcing, I only had two sources: the Pittsburgh Lesbian Correspondent website and the Daily Cost. That's all I had when I made that video yesterday. I could not find it anywhere else on any other news sites. So I went with the ones that I could find. There's a lot more people reporting on it now, which is good. And the whole reason I made this video yesterday was to let people know, what happened, right? That's all I did. That's all I wanted to do, is to make sure of what happened to this person, this child, was known about. You don't have to listen to me. You don't have to care a dang thing about what I have to say. But what matters is this child is gone. That's what matters. This child is gone because of the brutal actions of three kids who clearly were not taught right from wrong, who clearly had no empathy for other people. I was accused in one comment of blaming everybody else but the people that actually did the crime. Clearly, if that's what you took from that video, you didn't watch the whole video. As well, there were people out there victim shaming, blaming this child for their own murder, calling people that were non-binary nonsense. We're not going to victim blame here on the Big Ranch Show. It's not what we do. As well, we're not going to sit here and talk like people are nonsense because they're different than you. There are a lot of people different than me. A lot of people different than me, and I don't bother them. One of my best friends is very religious. I'm not. We're vastly different in a number of ways. They're straight, cisgender. I'm far from it. But we're still best friends because we don't care about, how each other live, who each other love. That's not our issue. It's not your issue either to care about who someone sees themselves as, who they present themselves as. If they ain't hurting anybody, leave them alone. And there's no reason to blame them when somebody murders them simply for existing. To those people that thought I misgendered Nex, I'm sorry if I did. I'm going through with all these news articles I'm looking at now, and they say they, them are the pronouns that Nex went by. So those are the ones I'm going with. In the interview that I'm about to read part of to you, the grandmother talks about Nex being non-binary or gender fluid, and they, them seemed to fit. If you happen to be a friend or family member that comes across this video of Nex, let me know. Let me know in the comments. Hit me up, bigranchshow@gmail.com, to set me straight. Because I may be trans myself, but I am very new to this whole pronoun thing. I'm old. So even here with my wife and my friends, I'm very lax when it comes to, it happening. When someone misgenders me, they, I'll go and I'll just be like, okay, I'll just move on. I don't worry about it. because I'm so new at it that I confuse people's pronouns all the time. I don't mean to. So I can't be mad or angry at other people when they've known me for as long as they have, right? To all of a sudden be using the pronouns that I'm using now. So it's understandable. But if I was wrong, please let me know. Now, I'm going to read you a little bit from the interview here that I found from the Independent. Um, I'll try to link it in the description. If I don't, just know that it's an article from the Independent, um, from the UK. It's a publication out of the UK that did a phone interview with the grandmother of Nex and grandfather as well. Part of the article here says, like many parents, Sue Benedict and her husband Walter at times struggled to understand the nuances of Nex's gender fluidity. Miss Benedict is Nex's biological grandmother and raised them since they were 2 months old, along with her 5-year-old or her 5 other children. She formally adopted Nex a few years ago. She told the Independent that Nex was always understanding if she used the incorrect pronoun or called Nex by their birth name. Um, the grandmother goes on to say, Nex did not see themselves as male or female. Miss Benedict said that Nex saw themselves as right down the middle. Going on to say, I was still learning about it. Nex was teaching me that. So it sounds like the family was very supportive of Nex and being who Nex was, being their authentic selves. And so it's really sad to see what happened at school. But you see that right there shows you that, just because people are older or whatever doesn't mean that they can't understand or can't learn. Like I mentioned about pronouns earlier. Yeah, I'm old. It's hard to understand some of the different pronouns that I see sometimes. But I do my best to get the right ones. If I get it wrong, just correct me. Thank you on that front. But the article goes on. Um, the um, Miss Benedict's husband Walter said that when you're old school, you don't always understand it. But the world would be boring if we were all the same. It's on the inside that matters most, right? So as you see, you know, from this, Nex was loved. Nex was a good kid, straight A student according to her sister, as it mentions in this article. That them being non-binary wasn't a problem. That Nex was just a good kid that didn't hurt anybody, loved their cat, and loved, playing video games and stuff like that. Stuff teenagers do, right? According to the grandmother, the family traces their heritage back to the Choctaw Nation, and they always encouraged open discussions about gender and identity. Even though they didn't understand it, they wanted their kids to be free. They wanted the kids to be free to know that they'd be loved no matter what, from what I'm seeing here. Miss Benedict goes on to say, I was very open with my children to be who and what they thought was best. They could talk to me about anything as long as that respect goes both ways. A child needs to figure out who they are and what they want to be, and you can't force it on them. Next is Sister Malia, who is also a member of the LGBTQ community, told The Independent in an interview that Nex's fluid gender identity was not an issue, nor anything that anybody cared about within the family. Nex was a straight A student who enjoyed drawing, reading, playing video games like Ark and Minecraft, and was devoted to their cat Zeus, according to Miss Benedict. I was so proud of Nex, Miss Benedict said. They were going places. They were so free. In early 2023, the grandparents found out that Nex was being bullied at school, culminating in what happened on February 7th. So this wasn't just one incident. The child was being bullied for a year. And all of it started when the Libs of TikTok creator made a video about a teacher who basically said that if, told LGBT people on like a TikTok video, they said something to the extent of, if your parents don't support you at home, that they would support them at school. That was the gist of it. And the Libs of TikTok lady, made a video with it, and all of a sudden, this person was having to resign from Owasso High School. It was one of the few people that parents of LGBT kids said, it was one of the few people at that school that actually were supportive of their teenagers. And they had to quit. They had to leave. Not just because the school didn't want them there anymore, but because they were getting threats. 13 miles away in another school district in Tulsa. I think I said 13 miles away in another article, but just a few miles away, basically. Libs of TikTok attacked another school with their videos and stuff, and had somebody else who had to quit and resign after 6 straight days of bomb threats. It's because of a librarian who made a joking video about their woke identity or ideology. It was literally a joking video, and it led to people making threats against the school district, telling them that if they did not get rid of this person, they were gonna bomb every single school in the district. So tell me where I was wrong in that other video, where I said that at the moment it definitely looks like part of what spurred this on was the creator of the Libs of TikTok account, who is now on a board in Oklahoma overseeing library books for school students. A woman who doesn't believe that racism exists unless it's against white people, that believe the LGBTQ community are a bunch of demons running around put on this earth by Satan or some bullshit. So I don't believe I was wrong with that reporting as of yet. You can't tell me these kids weren't pushed over the edge to do this kind of stuff for no reason. Right? Somebody that was vocal about their displeasure of what happened to one of their favorite teachers. The grandmother goes on to say that Nex was very angry about what had happened to Mr. Wynn, the teacher that had to resign from Owasso public school system. I'm not going to sit here and say whether it was right or wrong. I don't see why there was a problem, but people found there to be a problem, and the school wanted to basically force him to resign. Miss Benedict said that teachers who encourage the debate about gender issues are not promoting sexualized content. They are allowing students to be who they are. Miss Benedict first became aware that Nex was being bullied at school in early 2023. They go straight to their room and put on the radio, and I'd say, okay, you got to decompress for a little bit, and then you got to come out and talk about it. Miss Benedict goes on to say she remains furious at the school for not calling the police or seeking medical attention for Nex, and wants to see the children who allegedly assaulted Nex punished. So many people push kids to be one thing, and you've got to let them find themselves and be who they should be. Society has got to see them as they are, accept them, and go on, because we're all people. Um, and of course, you know, the lady that created TikTok continues to act as if she wasn't to blame, that it had nothing to do with her, that she never touched the kid, she didn't know the kid. You can't tell me these people don't know the dangers of their rhetoric. Here is the woman from Libs of TikTok. Um, and I really don't understand why this lady does what she does. Chea Rachik, is that her name? I don't freaking know her name. I can't pronounce it. I don't even want to. She's not even from Oklahoma, but she attacks Oklahoma schools and their teachers and goes after the LGBTQ community here in Oklahoma. She's from New York. Doesn't even have kids that reside in the state or go to school here. But with her rhetoric, bomb threats, 21 bomb threats to be exact, based on the other reporting that I've seen from half a dozen other articles at this point, show that 21 of those 31 incidents involved bomb threats or threats of physical violence against LGBT people, especially non-binary and trans people. The rhetoric coming from politicians is not helping. Politicians trying to demonize the trans community or the non-binary community or the LGBTQ community at large, that is leading to these instances. For the last few years, I've been reading more and more instances about children being bullied in school just because they're different. Kids being bullied in school because they're thought to be trans and they're not. Or simply for living their authentic lives as a non-binary or trans person. Because of the rhetoric from politicians and people like Miss Rachek here, LGBTQ plus youth are at a higher risk of violence. And people in the non-binary and trans community are already at a higher rate of abuse and bullying. Not just at home, but at school. So don't sit there and try to tell me that this lady had nothing to do with it. Don't sit there in my comments and try to victim blame, because a victim is never to blame for something that happens to them. I don't care if it's SA, I don't care if it's murder. A victim is not to be blamed for what happened to them. The blame resides on the people that caused it to happen, the people that did the actual action, the people that taught the kids, in this case, to be okay with harming other people just because they're different than you. So I'm not going to sit here and listen to people, act as if this child did anything wrong. This child did nothing wrong. They existed. And they deserved to exist. They deserve to still be alive today. They make it very clear. Nobody would choose to be gay or trans or non-binary. There's too much hate in the world for people to make that choice. And the next time you want to sit there and act like the people in the LGBTQ community have made a choice, other than just being their authentic selves, I want you to ask yourself, I want you to think really hard. If it's a choice, when did you choose to be cis and straight? The answer is you can't. Because if you're straight, you're straight. You knew probably pretty early that you liked people of the opposite gender. That was probably pretty clear to you. Especially by puberty. You're probably pretty set on what you like. I know for a fact that when I was 8, I found people, both females and males, to be cute. I thought they were both great. I didn't understand why, but I thought they were both great. By 10, I completely realized that I was not a boy, that I was transgender, but I didn't know what the word was until I was 15 watching a Jerry Springer show. But I was still me. I just hid it. I shouldn't have had to hide it. But I grew up in the 90s. We didn't see, I didn't hear a lot of cases of children being murdered just because they were different. I knew it happened, but I wasn't hearing about it. The first time I heard about somebody being beaten up and murdered because they weren't straight was Matthew Shepard. Further, sticking me in my closet. At that point, I became absolutely terrified that if anyone knew that I wasn't the boy that I was born to be, that I liked anything other than just the opposite sex, I was terrified of what could happen to me. And to know that this child was brutally attacked to the point they couldn't even walk. And you see also in that article, if you see it, you'll see too that the grandparent was informed when they picked their child up from the school that their child had been suspended. As of yet, there's been no discussion of any kind of punishment at the girls that beat the child up. Right now, police, according to that same article, are waiting for toxicology reports to come back before they make any charges. Hopefully that won't be too long. I don't see why they're waiting that long. It's obviously, very much related. to what Nex went through, the thought of those horrifying moments of being beaten like that. And of course, the fact that the child had so much damage around their head that they couldn't walk when they went, when they're, to the nurse station on their own. To know that the hospital didn't keep them, that's sad. The hospital should have kept them for observation overnight. I remember one time going to the hospital because I hit my head and they wanted to keep me. And all I had done is hit the back of my head one time. And they wanted to keep me overnight for observation. So I can't believe they sent this kid home. But apparently the next morning they were going to getting ready to go see a doctor in Tulsa, and they passed out in the living room. Apparently from the results of what had happened the day before. And when, by the evening of February 8th, Nex was dead. So to sit here and victim blame isn't cool. It's disgusting. To Sue Benedict, her husband Walter, and the entire family, and all the friends that Nex may have had, my deepest condolences. I hope one day that America will do better. I hope one day I won't have to make another report like this. I'm absolutely devastated to know what happened to this child. Terrified to know that it could happen to another. We've got to do better. You don't have to like trans or non-binary people. You don't have to be okay with it. But you know what you can do? Is not hurt us. We don't need to be hurt. We don't need laws curtailing our existence. We don't need rhetoric out there painting us as some kind of harm to people. We don't. We don't need the political rhetoric. We don't need the violence. And so I'll leave you with that. I'll leave you with the fact that no child should suffer like this. That no child should have to go through this. And nobody should be harmed simply for existing as their authentic selves. Anyhow, thank you for watching. Good luck.